Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Please join me and my guests on this interview. Now, according to exit polls, the Alternative for Germany party is projected to secure a historic victory in Thuringia while also performing strongly in Saxony. These results mark a significant shift in German politics, raising concerns about the hard right's growing influence. What does this mean for Germany's political landscape, and how will mainstream parties respond to this challenge? Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Andrzej Byrt, former ambassador to Germany. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello. Good morning for you and all our viewers.
Thank you so much for being with us. Can you help us understand what are some of the key factors behind AFD's success in these regional elections?
It was expected, but irrespective of the fact that the expectations are now really realizing, the fact is that it's a reaction, I think, of the East German society, which for one generation after the reunion of two parts of Germany, divided after the end of the Second World War, have decided to join forces. But as a matter of fact, it was not, so to say, an equal union. It was sometimes certain people or politicians or even historians are saying it was kind of a colonization of the East German society by West German political world, the much higher effectiveness, the much higher democratic standards. And as a result, after 35 years of the union and the living together, it turned out, however, that still East Germans don't feel as being equal to their West German colleagues, friends, or superiors. If you look, for instance, at the structure of the local authorities and different powers, which in counties, institutions, universities, very often those who are playing the most predominant role are people who came from the West. And the people in the East Germany are feeling kind of an inferiority complex. They, in the past, they were saying our Trabant is much worse than West German Golf, or very many other such words were compared as a signs of their local inferiority. It turned out now they are living in a democratic society of united Germany, but still they feel themselves not appreciated enough. And all of a sudden are coming politicians saying, guys, you have your own dignity and you can go together and show them, those from the West, that you've got different attitudes, different formats, but we will appreciate your being here as, so to say, those responsible for your part of Germany. And that was not a trick. They really played, particularly Alternative for Germany, AFD, they've played this the role of those who are trying to bring the East Germans from this inferiority complex and show them that they are fully responsible citizens who can take care of their own lives. At the very surface, it seems to be normal, democratic, liberal talk. But as a matter of fact, that's not true. East Germans have been for nearly more than 40 years of the existence of German Democratic Republic, which was one of the strongest communist states existing in the Central and Eastern Europe. They've got their heads brainwashed, and as a result, they were against such things like private initiative, as liberal approach to life, as very many things which we, for instance, in Poland, we are living through. I still have in my mind such disputes which we had during Poznan International Trade Fair, where East Germans coming there during the Solidarity period were shocked how Poles can contest this so-called socialist power of their government. They were unable to understand it. And now all of a sudden they were faced, it's more than one generation, such a situation lasts now, but they were unable to be confronted with the necessity of liberal approach to their own lives, and the famous saying, they were unable to take their own destiny in their own hands. Therefore, we've been witnessing a number of very many disappointments, starting from private businesses, going through institutional links, and ending on political attitudes as a reaction on what was happening in East Germany. They were, in quote unquote, offered much higher standard of living. They accepted it. They accepted also democracy as a way of choosing their political leaders. But still, what they left behind has now surfaced during a period which is, for Germany, a difficult one. We have to remind that first was a big crisis, 2008, 2012. Then came the coronavirus pandemic, and now the situation, economic situation in Germany after the outbreak of war when Russia aggressed the Ukraine. They've lost the sources of a cheap energy, and as a result, the economic situation in Germany has worsened. They feel it because in East Germany, you haven't got now strong industrial centers. You have lands, which mean federal countries, which are not that densely populated as are their Western colleagues and friends or partners. Still, they were not confronted with a strong competition which did exist in the West, and therefore they could find their own personal niche where they could live, not bothering that much what is happening in entire Germany. And the two parties, both right-wing alternative Germany, in Thuringia, this party, as a matter of fact, did win this election. They were trying to show them, look, guys, now we can rearrange our house as we'd like to do it, sometimes contrary to the general mainstream democratic trends in Germany. Such a also element which make these people react was also the aggression of Russia on Ukraine, since they were brainwashed by East German propaganda, very much pro-SSSR oriented, pro-Soviet Union oriented propaganda. They still keep the sort of sympathy for the so-called Great Soviet Union, which did not exist, doesn't exist, but still these subconscious links and approval of this big Soviet country, which did disappear very many years ago, but still the respect towards them pushed them towards the non-acceptance of the aid which the democratic West decided to send to Ukraine. If we look, for instance, at West Germany in the terms of old West Germany and East German countries, the great majority of the inhabitants of the Ost, as they call themselves, Ossis, did not accept the support of the fight of Ukraine by democratic countries of the West and the NATO. They also have very many objections against the United States, and therefore it simply gave very fertile grounds for such parties like Alternative Germany, AFD.
Right. Does look like a lot of different grievances and historical matters came together, accumulating in the success of the AFD party. So my question next would be like whether or not this is going to be a trend going forward. Do we see this trend kind of affecting Germany on a federal level, or do you think it'll be a more isolated thing in East Germany?
The AFD has always tried to implant well also in the west part of Germany with no success, as a matter of fact, with maybe one or two exceptions. So it seems to me that this attitude, probably the winners, if they will be in East Germany, will probably try to spread their movement also towards Western countries of Federal Republic of Germany. But we have to remember that whether Björn Höcke, the leader of Alternative Germany for Germany, will really be able to create a government in Thuringen. It's not that short, because as a matter of fact, all the mainstream party have decided, to a certain extent, in a comparable way like the parties did in France, to stop the AFD in Germany, which means not make a kind of a fire barrier, which will probably try to refuse entering in coalition with an AFD. If it happens, we have to look at the situation after the election. It will be still an open question, but all parties, including also a radical left party, the Bündnis für Sarah Wagenknecht. She was from the left and left this party and created its own alliance, very leftist. She also did refuse to enter into coalition with the potential winners of the winners of the elections in Thuringen. As we know, the advantage of Christian Democrats in Saxony is relatively small. So the same situation will probably happen there in Saxony, but in Saxony, the leaders will be asked demanded or advised to create a government, and probably they'll be able to do it in Saxony. In Thuringen, all the democratic parties, although they lost, except for the Christian Democrats, will probably have now to unite their forces to stop FAG to create a government in Thuringen.
Right, so there might be a little bit of like
it'll be tests for democratic
involved.
approach of all the Eastern parties.
Right, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. Thanks again for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.